hoopinhoops.com. I have said this repeatedly, but I will say it again. I do not agree with the way Ben Simmons is going about trying to get traded. I understand what he's doing and why he's doing it. In fact, early in his announcement or decision that he was not going to play or return to Philadelphia, I spoke about the things he could have done if he wanted to get traded. I also pointed out about the ineffectiveness of simply staying away from the team, with the hopes that they come up with a trade, that will suit the Philadelphia 76ers. We saw the impact of his decision to simply just stay away. The Sixers put his money in an escrow and they deducted the amounts as needed, in situations like when he missed a game and so on. So for him to simply stay away from the team, worked in the benefit of the Philadelphia 76ers in many ways. In other words, you know, in a bad situation, that's the good that could come out of it, if you want to put it in those terms. Now, I'm certain persons have heard me in the past say that Doc Rivers is primarily to blame for the situation that exists between the Sixers and Ben. And if one looks at the series, you know, from the start of Doc hiring all the way into the playoffs, the evidence is compelling. It's compelling that Doc made a number of missteps. We understand that, you know, when a coach comes, he takes over a team, he does not necessarily use the players in the same way as his predecessors. Some persons who saw a lot of minutes get reduced roles. Some people are asked to do different things. Things change. But, I've already mentioned the number of things unrelated to just simply a coaching change that Doc did that contributed to the fiasco. And I can mention one or two quickly if you know. Um, for example, you decide you're going to change Ben's role, moving from a 1-2 option to a 3-4 option. You claim you want to use him like Rondo. He adjusts his style of play to what Doc wants. Keep in mind that throughout the entire regular season, and while they were in the process of getting that number one record in the Eastern Conference, there was no talk about his poor free throw shooting. But you end up in the playoffs, and Ben is doing exactly what he asked. And at an elite level, Doc decides, because he sees the possibility of a series being lost, to announce to the media that if Ben does not make his free throws, he's going to bench him. Now, tell me, when have you ever seen a coach done that to a rotation player, let alone one of his key players? If they don't think the player is useful, what a coach would do is that he would take away his minutes. He would sit him or do whatever he thinks is in the best interest of the team. He would not go to the media and threaten the players' playing time. You sometimes hear reporters question or comment about why they're not using certain key rotational players, you know, during certain games, during certain important games. But it's not because the team announced it, because they notice the player is there sitting. What those persons who criticize Ben are saying is that, Ben did it to himself, he played poorly. Yet, the only thing they're referring to is that he shot poorly from the free throw line. And, he passed up that layup in game 7 with the Hawks. Now, they should have known better because what I realize they're doing is they simply do not want to criticize Doc Rivers. And we could get into that, but I'll leave that for a different show. What persons are not doing is they're not looking at is his entire game. Because his entire game was not just at the free throw line, you know. And the persons who criticize him claim, you know, they know basketball so well. In fact, you know, they should also know that his decision not to return to Philadelphia was not based on his performance. I should say not based on his performance only, because, there are things that contributed to, the way he performed, um, that were external to just simply his actions. All right. So, so there's the performance, and then there's the comments that were made during the series with the Hawks after they got bounced from the playoffs, and some things that happened throughout the regular season as well. We know this much because it was communicated when it was said that he felt drained or somewhat frustrated throughout the season. Now, this is the thing. With all that said, there is one thing to say about someone who is primarily responsible for the situation, and there's another thing about being unprofessional. And I think Ben Simmons is being unprofessional. I get it. Doc is full of bull when he makes, some of those statements to the media. We get it. I think Ben sees it as well. But Ben is responsible for his actions, not for the actions or the words of other persons. When you sign a contract, you honor the terms of the contract as best you can. Now, I understand things don't always work out as you expect. There are some uncertainties, and you try to get out of it, but you have to be professional. If there is some uncertainty when you think you're going to sign the contract, when you're about to sign a contract, you sign a different contract. You put shorter length so that you could get out quicker, or you put different conditions and so forth in the contract. But players these days, they want all their money. They want to get as much as they can. They want to have their cake and eat it. And I said the same thing about James Harden when he wanted to get out of Houston. I did not agree with the way he went about it, partying. Um, the possibility of getting infected with COVID, and the whole drama, coming in out of shape, the way to play the games and all of that sort of stuff. So personally don't believe that's how um, players should behave. But that's the player of nowadays. And you show up, you under contract, you show up, you do what you're supposed to do. There were ways you could send subtle messages that you want to get out, but you sign a contract, honor it. So, as I said, I do not agree with the actions of Ben Simmons. Hoopinhoops.com.